The xenological survey vessel Harmonious Inquiry drifted in silent orbit around the third planet from an unremarkable yellow star. Inside its vast observation dome, senior xenologist Theral 7 studied the holographic displays with 4 of his 6 eyes, while the remaining 2 monitored his team's reactions. Analysis confirms the preliminary reports, announced junior researcher Mekra, her crystalline voice resonating through the chamber. Sentient life, pre-faster-than-light civilization. Classification suggests they're approximately 4 to 5 centuries from achieving practical interstellar travel. Theral 7 adjusted his sensory stalks, focusing on the data streams. The Velcrin had been exploring the galaxy for 12,000 cycles, cataloging worlds and species with methodical precision. This planet, the inhabitants called it Earth, represented a textbook example of a developing civilization, except for one troubling detail. "Show me the conflict analysis again," Theral 7 requested. The hologram shifted, displaying historical data compiled from electromagnetic transmissions the humans had been broadcasting into space for the past century. Wars, thousands of them, spanning their entire recorded history. "The violence index is unprecedented," Mekro noted, her bioluminescent skin flickering amber with concern. "In our database of 3,742 sentient species, none display this level of sustained intra-species conflict. Most achieve unification within 2,000 cycles of developing agriculture. These humans have had agriculture for 12,000 of their years and still maintain hundreds of separate territorial entities." "Yet they've achieved remarkable technological progress," countered observational specialist Quinn, gesturing at another display. "Nuclear fission, satellite networks, primitive genetic manipulation, early artificial intelligence. Their advancement curve is actually ahead of projections given their fractured political structure." Theral 7 hummed thoughtfully, a low vibration that indicated deep contemplation. "Begin standard observation protocols, 6-month passive survey before we submit our classification recommendation to the Council." What the Velcrin didn't know was that their passive observation was about to be interrupted. 3 months into the survey, junior researcher Mekra led a small team to Earth's surface for geological sampling. Their landing site was carefully chosen, deep in the Amazon rainforest, far from human population centers. Standard procedure required minimal surface contact: land, collect samples, depart within 4 hours. The mission proceeded flawlessly until the 3rd hour. "Environmental disruption detected," warned Beshuttle's AI. "Localized atmospheric instability. Recommend immediate departure." Pilot Vren 2 initiated launch protocols, but the shuttle's gravitational dampeners, designed for the stable, predictable environments of Velcrin space, couldn't compensate for the sudden storm. Lightning struck the vessel's primary power coupling. Emergency systems engaged, but they were grounded. "Distress signal transmitted," Vren 2 reported, his voice professionally calm despite the crisis. "Retrieval team will arrive in 18 hours." 18 hours? Mekra's skin flashed red with alarm. The hull integrity won't last that long in this environment. These biological factors, she gestured at the dense vegetation pressing against their viewports, they're already beginning to corrode the exterior plating. The team of 4 Velcrins settled in for an uncomfortable wait, monitoring their deteriorating shuttle while trying to ignore the cacophony of alien life surrounding them. That's when the humans arrived. Aboard the Harmonious Inquiry, Theral 7 received the distress signal with bureaucratic resignation. 18 hours for retrieval was standard protocol. Time to prepare a proper rescue vessel, brief the team, conduct safety assessments, file the necessary reports with 3 different departments. Then the proximity alarms activated.
"Sir, we're detecting human activity converging on the shuttle's location," reported Quinn. "Multiple vehicles, approximately 20 individuals." Theral 7's eyes widened in alarm. "What? That location is 43 kilometers from the nearest human settlement through dense jungle terrain. They can't possibly know about our team. Pulling up the surveillance data, Quinn manipulated the holographic display. It appears a human research station detected our shuttle's power surge when we attempted launch. They interpreted it as, wait, they think it's a crashed aircraft. Crashed? Feral 7 leaned forward. But our shuttle is intact, merely disabled. They don't know that. They're mounting a rescue mission. Feral 7 watched in fascination as the human vehicles, primitive wheeled machines, forced their way through impossible terrain. The humans inside wore minimal protection, their soft biological bodies exposed to countless environmental hazards. They carried medical equipment, cutting tools, and supplies. Probability analysis, Feral 7 demanded. What are their chances of reaching our team before nightfall? The AI processed the data, accounting for terrain difficulty, equipment limitations, and human physiological constraints, 0.03%. But the humans kept coming. Inside the stranded shuttle, Mekra heard the sounds first. Mechanical whining, engines roaring, voices shouting in an unfamiliar language. Through the viewports, she saw them, bipedal creatures, remarkably similar to Velcrin in basic structure, but taller, with only 2 eyes and oddly flexible faces. "They found us," she whispered. The humans approached cautiously, clearly confused by the shuttle's design. One of them, a female with dark skin and short black hair, spoke into a communication device. Even without translation, Mekra could hear the urgency in her voice. Then the humans did something that would be discussed in Velcrin academic circles for generations to come. They began trying to help. Despite having no understanding of Velcrin technology, despite the obvious danger of the unstable shuttle, despite their complete lack of protective equipment beyond simple masks and gloves, the humans immediately began attempting to stabilize the vessel. They used their primitive cutting tools to clear vegetation. They positioned their vehicles to shield the shuttle from the worsening storm. They brought medical supplies to the viewports, gesturing to ask if anyone inside needed help. One human, a male with sun-weathered skin and gray hair, actually climbed onto the shuttle's hull to examine the damaged power coupling. He had no protective suit, no scanning equipment, no technical readouts, just his eyes and hands and a collection of basic tools.
"He can't possibly repair the coupling," Vren2 stated. "He doesn't even know what it is." But the humans studied it. His weathered face creased with concentration. Then he did something that made perfect sense and absolutely no sense at the same time. He ripped open his own equipment pack, pulled out what appeared to be conductive cable from their primitive electrical systems, and began jerry-rigging a bypass of the damaged coupling. It shouldn't have worked. The voltage requirements were incompatible, the materials were wrong, the entire approach violated 17 different principles of Velcrin engineering. The shuttle's systems flickered to life. "Impossible," Vren2 breathed. Through the viewport, Mekra watched the human's face break into a wide smile. He climbed down from the hull, shouted something to his companions, and made a gesture, thumb raised upward. The universal symbol for success, apparently. The female human approached the viewport, her expression concerned. She placed her hand against the transparent aluminum, and Mekra, without thinking, mirrored the gesture. They stayed like that for several seconds, 2 beings from different worlds sharing a moment of connection across the barrier between them. Aboard the Harmonious Inquiry, Feral 7 watched the rescue unfold with growing agitation. Every action the humans took violated probability models. They worked with insufficient information, inadequate equipment, and impossible time constraints. They succeeded anyway. "I need a psychological profile analysis," Feral 7 demanded. "What motivated this behavior? The humans gained nothing from this rescue. They expended significant resources, risked their own safety, and never even confirmed that our team was alive inside that shuttle. The AI hummed while processing. Analysis suggests motivation stems from empathy construct plus hypothetical reciprocity expectations. Humans appear to operate under assumption that rescue behavior, regardless of recipient, benefits their species-wide survival probability. That's irrational, Quinn objected. The energy expenditure alone is exactly what makes them dangerous, Theral 7 interrupted, his voice quiet with realization. Don't you see? They don't calculate optimal outcomes. They act on principles that transcend immediate survival benefit. Mekra's voice crackled through the communication system. Sir, requesting permission to make direct contact with the rescue team. They deserve acknowledgement. Theral 7 hesitated. First contact protocols required council approval, extensive preparation, cultural liaison teams. But looking at the humans still gathered around the shuttle, waiting to ensure the survivors were safe despite not receiving any confirmation. Permission granted. But Mekra, be careful. We don't know how they'll react. When the shuttle's hatch opened and 4 Velkrin emerged, the human rescue team did what their entire species would do in the same situation. They adapted. There was shock, certainly, wide eyes and dropped jaws and several humans stumbling backward. But the female who'd led the rescue, Dr. Sarah Chen, Mekra would later learn, stepped forward. She didn't run, she didn't attack, she simply smiled and spoke slowly, clearly trying to communicate despite the language barrier. Are you all right? Mekra activated her translator implant, set to learning mode. Within seconds, it began processing the sounds into meaning. We are unharmed. You saved us. Thank you. This simple phrase caused a commotion among the humans. They weren't afraid, or rather they were afraid but chose to act despite their fear. They began asking questions, offering supplies, trying to understand. One human, a young male with bright eyes and excited gestures, kept pointing at Mekra's bioluminescent skin and making sounds of wonder. Another pulled out a primitive communication device and began recording, narrating in rapid-fire speech. The gray-haired human who'd repaired the shuttle approached Friend 2, gesturing at the improvised repair with obvious pride mixed with concern. Even without translation, his meaning was clear. Will this hold? Do you need more help? As the Velkrin shuttle lifted off 2 hours later, the humans below waved and cheered. They'd just made first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, and their primary emotion was joy. Back aboard the Harmonious Inquiry, Theral 7 began composing his preliminary report to the Council. His hands trembled slightly as he wrote, an unusual display of emotion for a Velkrin. Classification recommendation required, the AI prompted. Theral 7 stared at the data, at the recordings of the rescue, at the psychological profiles that made no logical sense. These humans were violent, irrational, and technologically primitive. They made decisions based on emotion rather than optimal probability calculations. They were also the most potentially dangerous species the Velkrin had ever encountered. Not because of their weapons or their technology, but because of something far more unpredictable, their unwillingness to accept impossibility as an answer. Recommendation postponed, extended observation required. These humans, we need to understand them better before... The alarm cut him off. Priority distress signal. Velkrin Research Station Delta 7, orbiting the human planet's 4th satellite, their Mars. Status, under attack. Estimated hostile force, Kroval Collective Raiding Party. Standard military response time, 48 hours. Estimated station survival time, 6 hours. Theral 7 looked at the data, then at the feed from Earth's primitive space station, the International Space Station, orbiting just 400 kilometers below. He wondered if the humans had heard the distress call. He suspected, with growing dread and strange hope, that they had. Commander Elena Volkov was conducting a routine systems check aboard the International Space Station when the anomaly appeared on her communications panel. The signal was wrong, too precise, too powerful, cycling through frequencies that shouldn't exist in any terrestrial technology. Houston, are you seeing this? She spoke into her headset. her Russian accent thickening slightly with confusion. Negative, ISS. We're not detecting any unusual signals. Can you isolate the source? Elena worked the controls with practiced efficiency, her fingers dancing across the touchscreens. She'd been in space for 3 months, and in that time had learned to trust her instincts. This signal felt important. Wait, Houston, I'm picking up what sounds like... It's not human language, but there's definitely pattern and structure, and... She paused, recalibrating the sensors. There's a visual component. Patching it to your analysis team now. What appeared on the screens made Elena's blood run cold. A station, clearly artificial, clearly not human, in orbit around Mars. And surrounding it, 4 vessels that could only be described as warships, their weapons tearing into the station's hull. Houston, are we recording this? Tell me you're recording this. ISS, we need you to stay calm. We're waking up the entire command chain. This is, Elena, this is first contact. This is an attack, Elena corrected, her military background overriding the scientific wonder. Someone is dying up there, and they're asking for help. 600 kilometers away, aboard the Harmonious Inquiry, Theral 7 watched the Kroval attack with bureaucratic horror. Protocol was clear. In case of hostile action, observe and report. Military response would be mobilized. Proper channels would be followed. But those channels took 48 hours minimum. Research Station Delta 7 had 6 hours, maybe less. The humans detected the distress signal, Quinn reported, highlighting the increased electromagnetic activity from their primitive space station. They're analyzing it. It doesn't matter, Theral 7 said, though his tone lacked conviction. They have no capability to respond. No weapon systems, no military vessels in orbit, no... Sir, multiple launches detected from Earth's surface. Theral 7's eyes widened. That's impossible. Our intelligence indicates their space programs require months of preparation for any launch. They can't possibly... 3 rockets, sir, launching from separate facilities, one from their United States territory, one from China, and one from Russia. Launch profiles indicate extreme velocity. They're burning fuel at rates that should tear their vehicles apart. Show me. The holographic display revealed 3 primitive chemical rockets screaming into space, their trajectories plotted for Mars intercept. The mathematics were insane. They were using gravity assists and orbital mechanics in ways that pushed their technology beyond safe operational parameters. Estimated arrival time to Mars orbit, 73 hours, the AI calculated. That's faster than our own response time, Quinn breathed. But Theral 7 was already pulling up the specifications of the human vessels. These are cargo rockets, supply missions to their Mars research stations. They have no weapons, no shields, no... Sir, receiving communication from the human space station, they're attempting to contact us on the same frequency as the distress signal. Theral 7 hesitated only a moment before activating translation protocols. Put them through. A human female appeared on the screen, her face serious but calm. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Elena Volkov of the International Space Station. We've detected your distress signal. We don't know who you are or what you're facing, but help is coming. Our ships aren't military, but we're bringing everything we have. Just hold on. The transmission ended. Theral 7 stared at the empty screen. They're sending cargo ships against Kroval raiders. Should we warn them? Mekra asked. She'd remained aboard the Harmonious Inquiry after the rescue, filing reports on human behavior. They don't understand what they're facing. But would it stop them? Mekra remembered the human rescuers in the jungle, remembered their determination despite impossible odds. No, it wouldn't.
71 hours later, Commander Marcus Webb piloted the hastily modified cargo vessel Ares Endeavour into Mars orbit. Behind him came 2 sister ships, Tianwen Hope, commanded by Colonel Lin Zhao, and Cosmos Unity under Captain Dmitry Kozlov. None of them were combat veterans. Webb was a logistics specialist, Lin was a geologist, Kozlov was an engineer. They'd been preparing to deliver supplies to Mars Base Alpha when the distress signal changed everything. All vessels, this is Webb. Visual confirmation on the alien station. Also confirming 4 hostiles. They're bigger than anything in our intel files, and they're armed with energy weapons. This is Kozlov. My ship's sensors are having stroke trying to analyze their technology. We're outmatched by about 5 centuries. Then we improvise. Lynn's voice came through with characteristic calm. Webb, what's our inventory? Webb pulled up the manifest. 3 cargo ships loaded with supplies for a Mars base. Food, water, equipment, construction materials, fuel. And one item he'd insisted on adding during the frantic rush to launch. I've got 60 mining explosives, meant for excavation work at the base. I have 43, Kozlov reported. 58 here, Lynn added. Total of 161 explosive devices, none designed for space combat. None designed, no, Webb agreed, a plan forming in his mind. But space doesn't care what we designed them for. Physics is physics. Aboard Research Station Delta 7, Senior Administrator Kelnar watched her station die piece by piece. The Kroval raiders were methodical, disabling systems to maximize salvage value. They'd board soon, take what they wanted, and kill anyone who resisted. Standard Kroval procedure. Sir, detecting new contacts, reported one of her techs. 3 vessels, approaching fast. Unknown configuration. Reinforcements from the fleet? Kelnar felt a surge of hope. Negative. These vessels are primitive. Chemical propulsion, minimal armor, no visible weapons systems. The tech's voice dropped to confusion. Sir, I think these are human ships. Human? The planet natives? They're barely capable of orbital flight. Confirmed, sir. Receiving transmission now. Webb's speakers crackled through the speakers, translation systems struggling with the unfamiliar language. Alien Station, this is Commander Marcus Webb of Earth. We're here to help. We don't have much, but we're not letting you die without a fight. Just tell us where to hit them. Kelnar stared at the display showing the 3 tiny vessels accelerating toward the massive Kroval warships. It was suicide. It was insane. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen.